We'll call to order the meeting of the Ellettsville Plan Commission for Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Pat, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Roll call, please. Here.
Here.
Steve Hale.
Here.
Zach Knight. Here. Pamela Samples.
Here.
Brian Scaggs. Here. Pat Mazzalowski.
Here. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for August 8th, 2024.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Monthly conflict of interest statement. Does anyone have a conflict of interest with the items on our agenda tonight? Seeing none, we have no old business, new business. The first item is voluntary annexation of the following: one parcel next to 6855 West Starnes Road and three parcels adjacent to Flatwoods Road and south of 6855 West Starnes Road. The petitioners are Amy and Greg Vegetis and Umberger Farms, LLP, case number PC 24-16. Denise.
Good evening. Before you are petitions by Amy and Greg Vegetis and Umberger Farms, LLP, to voluntarily annex 4 parcels totaling approximately 193.85 acres of land. Subject parcels are located at North Starnes Road and West Flatwoods Road. Proposed annexation area for Amy and Greg Vegetis is 15% contiguous to the town of Ellettsville, and 100% of the property owners are parties to the petition. Proposed annexation area for Umberger Farms LLP is 19% contiguous to the town of Ellettsville, and 100% of the property owners are parties to the petition. Properties are currently zoned AG/RR, Agricultural Reserve by Monroe County, and it is recommended to be designated as A1 Agricultural upon annexation. Properties will be located in Council Ward 1. Plan Commission action shall be in the form of a favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation to Town Council, which takes final action on the annexation petition. Staff recommends a favorable recommendation be forwarded to Town Council with a recommended zoning of A1 Agricultural upon annexation. Petitioner Greg Vegetis is present. Representatives of Umberger Farms would have had some distance to travel, so I told them I would represent them in this regard as far as the annexation. And that's all I have.
Okay, so I see this actually brings us all the way out to the edge of Flatwoods Park. Is the next parcel to the west.
And this is the surrounding zoning. And we recently, a few months ago, brought in 2 other parcels for Umberger Farms, which has the green slashes, and that's also zoned agricultural. And then there's some photographs of the subject parcels.
And I would assume the costs to the town are very minimal on this, considering it's pretty much vacant land.
Correct.
Any questions or comments for Denise? Seeing none, would the petitioner that's here like to say anything? You don't? Okay. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this proposed annexation? Seeing none, we're back to the commission.
Make a motion to approve.
Favorable recommendation, please.
Make
To
a
town
motion for a
council.
favorable recognition, favorable, what is it?
Recommendation
I'm sorry, favorable recommendation to forward it to town council
with agricultural 1 zoning, please.
with agricultural 1 zoning.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
David Drake,
Yes?
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Steve Hale,
Yes.
Zach Michael,
Yes.
Pamela Samples,
Yes.
Brian Skaggs,
Yes.
Pat Wazalowski.
Yes.
Welcome to
you.
Ellettsville.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda is Town Council Resolution 29-2024 to amend the Ellettsville Plan Commission's proposed Unified Development Ordinance.
So the Plan Commission will recall that the Plan Commission voted on the Unified Development Ordinance back at its July meeting and voted to pass it to the Town Council with a positive recommendation. The council discussed it at its August meetings and decided to propose some changes to the Unified Development Ordinance. And so at the last Town Council meeting, I had prepared for the council a series of proposed amendments that were based on comments that were provided by council members, and the council voted to pass all of the amendments except for proposed Amendment G, which was withdrawn. And so this is on your agenda tonight because pursuant to the Indiana Code, of which I provided you a copy, the proposal is returned to the Plan Commission for its consideration, and so the Plan Commission choices now are to approve the amendments, or you can choose to do nothing. You can vote to reject, or you can vote to disapprove of the amendment, in which case it goes back to the Town Council for action. And in order for the council's proposed amendments to pass, they have to vote on it again within 45 days after you consider this. So what you have in front of you is, as I stated, it was the resolution that was presented to the council with all of the proposed amendments. I would also add that there is a procedure under the Indiana Code that allows for the Plan Commission at a later time to make some proposed amendments to the UDO. So if the Plan Commission disagrees with the council on a particular issue, the Plan Commission can, in fact, later initiate a new ordinance to put some language back in, or to clarify something, or to provide a definition. And some of the things you will have to think about are the following. The vendor that the town hired, Taylor Siefker, recommended that there were some things that should be in a standards manual versus in an ordinance, and so that will have to be developed later. The Plan Commission will have to work on a new chart or a new fine schedule for violations, and there are some other things, but one of the things the town council talked about was pole signs. There are regulations currently in the code that regulate pole signs, so if you still want to have some regulations on pole signs regarding height, how many per parcel, and so forth, the Plan Commission may certainly draft some proposed ordinances later to send back to council to put some of that language back in the code, if that makes sense. And I did prepare a letter and send it out last Friday explaining what the Plan Commission's options are.
So just let me make sure that I understand this.
Sure.
We can't, so one example for me is the very first thing under prohibited signs. It's got the roof signs thing. We can't, at this point, we can't change it to cover the size of the signs or the number of the signs. I mean, if we make that sign no longer prohibited, can they put like 20, cover their entire roof with signs at this point?
As it stands now, these signs, animated signs and roof signs are allowed. And maybe Dan and Pam can address this as council members, but I think the concern at the council level was more about definitions. But there's nothing wrong with the Plan Commission at a later date coming up with an ordinance that regulates animated signs and roof signs.
But we can't do that now. We have to either take it as they sent it to us, yes or no.
Yes.
Because I also have concerns about the flag thing. I mean, while I'm not opposed to flags at all, I'm not sure that we should allow someone to put, like 500 flags in their yard, and it doesn't have any
Correct.
restrictions on the size. But you're saying that we can later create a standards manual that puts in some,
It can either be part of a standards manual, depending on what you're talking about, or under the Indiana Code, specifically 36-7-4-602, the Plan Commission is allowed to, one of your duties is to, if you see a concern with the zoning code, you can craft an ordinance for the town council's consideration, like you have in the past.
but in the meantime, if someone really wants to, they can fill up their whole roof with signs and fill their whole yard up with flags, and
Well-
we can't do anything about it.
I disagree, though, because there is, in the UDO, in our ordinances and plans, we have or size limits and stuff, correct? Just
Well-
because it is, are not prohibited anymore, you still gotta go by the guidelines we have in there. And this was a point that I brought up at the council meeting.
Well, if they're exempt from all provisions of the sign standards.
And see, that was a question that I asked during the council meeting.
Yeah, because
Because
that's what I
throughout
read
the
is,
UDO, there's other things that, like the blinking, fluttering, the animated signs. There's other things in the UDO that point to this, and that was the question I made, was, okay, if we take that out of there, does the rest of it have to go out too, or does it stay in?
but what you sent us back exempts those signs from the whole sign ordinance.
Right.
I got a question, maybe a
Sure.
request for more specification, but on pole signs, would that include like, any type of like campaign signs that are like put into the yard, or like real estate signs or anything that, because it says attached to a pole or supports so that the bottom edge is not on a base. Is that basically any type of sign that would just stick into the ground?
I think the intent for the pole signs are for like the large signs that you see at the shopping centers. Like, just one example is like the Denny's sign. It's a sign on a pole, or when you go into a shopping center, you see, if you go into the mall at College Mall, you've got the signs outside that say Dick's Sporting Goods, blah, blah, blah. Those are the pole signs that we're talking about.
I still disagree with that, because we do have standards on sizes of signs, so if they put a roof sign up, they still have to go by our standards. It is a sign. Just because it's a roof sign doesn't mean that we have to go back by the standards, correct?
Well, which section of the UDO are you looking at?
And I didn't bring it with me, and I apologize, so. But it is in there, we have sizes and things like that for signs, so it is still classified as sign. So they would still have to go by the ordinances that are in place now too, correct? Or-
Well, no, the ordinances that are in place now are going to be gone, because you're repealing those and replacing it with the UDO. So unless you have something specifically withholding repeal of a specific section of the code, it's going to go away once this is adopted.
Well, if you got a copy of the UDO, let's just go to animated signs. Go 4 or 5 pages ahead of that, it talks about the type of animated signs and things like that. You have the UDO in front of you?
Yeah. I don't know exactly where.
Frequently they can blink in 15-second.
Yeah, and things like that, so, and then it did cover dimensions and things then. And this
But
was a
the-
question that I asked during the council meeting.
But the problem is that the wording here says the following type of signs. Wait a minute, where'd that one go?
Under permitted permanent signs, which is table 4.13, it goes through the sign type, it tells you what district it's permitted in, and then it has a maximum size. So they've got awning signs, ground signs, mailbox sign, projecting sign, wall sign, or window sign. So unless one of the signs that's been prohibited, like animated or roof signs, falls into one of those categories, it is not going to be regulated.
And it says, the following are exempt from all provisions of the sign standards.
And that may be something for the Plan Commission to think about and to try to correct or to try to draft an ordinance to address those. Because I think one of the town council members specifically, in particular with animated signs, was concerned about the definitions. And I think some of the concerns on one of the, part of the town council members of roof signs was, like restaurants and all, they wanted, business owners to be able to advertise. So, I mean, there may be ways around this or where you can narrow what's allowed, but, I mean, this is the way council, what you have in front of you is what the council approved at its last meeting.
Those exemptions are only for the ones in that section. That exempt part is only for that address signs, buildings, flags. It doesn't apply to the animated, emitting, human. They're two different sections.
Right. But we still have problems with the flags
Right.
and the, some of the other things.
Do we have to accept all the amendments, or is it amendment by amendment?
Unfortunately, the statute isn't clear, but I think it's probably going to be neater and cleaner if it's an all or nothing
All right.
vote. And then go back to the drawing board or give Denise and me ideas for ordinances that you want to draft to make some corrections.
So Denise, are we holding anyone up with the UDO not being officially approved yet?
Yes.
Okay.
How are we holding them up? They can go to the BZA. That's another thing that it just,
Well, the BZA, they have to pay $300 per variance request. I met with a couple of engineers, some new projects coming in, and they appreciate what the UDO has to offer. There's some facade requirements, changes to lot size and lot width, the diversity of the housing, and so they're glad for this. It aligns with the comp plan and the Envision Ellettsville plan, so yeah, they're waiting for it to pass.
So if we
and
accept,
then they're breaking ground the next day, or,
No,
oh.
so if we approve what was sent back to us, the council can then at their next well, let's say that then they accept our recommendation to accept their recommendation. Can they then, so at our next meeting, we could provide some additional restrictions on some of these things?
You could draft ordinances that suggest restrictions, yes. This is the first time the town has been through this process, and certainly I haven't been through this process either, but it's my understanding from talking to other attorneys who've been through this is it's not at all unusual within the next few weeks or months even for ordinances to be passed to address the things that maybe weren't addressed or that weren't caught while you're trying to draft a 209-page document. So if you approve the amendment tonight, then the ordinance stands as passed by the legislative body. So that means if you approve it, then the UDO with these changes will be considered passed as of today's vote. If you fail to act within 45 days, then these amendments stand as passed by the council. If you disapprove of their amendments, you can vote that way and send it back to council, in which case council then has to turn around and confirm their amendments by another vote, which I know is convoluted. This is not a statute that's easy to read, but that's the procedure.
So if we don't do anything, town council's got 45 days,
Yes,
and they can override us, per se?
yes. They have to vote again, and they have to reaffirm their vote, might be a better way to put it, yes.
So, I mean, unless we approve this tonight, this whole UDO process has been going on for a long
A year.
time. And there have been people waiting for it to get done so they can take action. I really hate to hold it up for another 2 or even 3 months until it gets to be winter time and then nobody can do anything. So I guess what I would rather do is approve what was sent to us and then try to fix it at our next meeting. And in the meantime, if someone comes out and puts 500 flags in the front yard, I'm going to tell them to call Dan.
I'm still puzzled because I can't believe that there's still no standards. Just because something is allowed, there's no standards anymore?
Well, it has to fall into one of those categories that I just read. And so if you're exempting that type of sign, then you're exempting animated signs.
So I could build a 4-story animated sign out here and wouldn't be under any kind of code, ordinance,
You can put up,
anything, structure. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble believing it. I
well,
mean,
But see, what you're not understanding is approving this completely removes all of the other regulations that we previously
right.
had in our ordinance.
If we do what David is suggesting, is there a time frame that we can't go back and change it? Like you're talking, is it a year or?
no, you can go back at any time, and in fact, the vendor that we've been working with recommends that the zoning ordinance be reviewed at least on an annual basis to figure out what is working and what's not working for the community. You know, what issues is the Plan Commission having, what issues are the BZA having, what issues are the Planning Department having? And so they recommend at least once a year reviewing it. So no, there are no time limits. I mean, you can fix it
So
whenever you want to.
the other end there, Danny, we could change that if we wanted to, eventually, if we see it wasn't working properly. Am I correct?
I didn't catch like the first part of your sentence there, the,
Danny's talking about the signs,
sure,
okay?
yeah,
A year from now, Joe Blow can come in and say, hey, you know, I'm putting a restaurant up and I want this type of sign, and we can say yay or nay. We have to change it though. in
it's
the
gonna have to be changed
change.
before that petitioner comes before you.
Right,
Because there are some
okay.
things that are obviously gonna be grandfathered in, some things might not be. And once pole signs and billboards go up, those are expensive, people put a lot of money into them,
Mm-hmm.
and those aren't coming down. So, and a Gumby sign is a little different, but once people start paying money for expensive signs, those are, so that would be my first suggestion, is that the plan commission think about putting back into the code the restrictions on pole signs.
So
That would just be my
we've got to
because
develop
you've
all
got-
new standards, correct?
Well,
For
you've got
this?
standards in the code now, but once those are repealed, you have this code, the new UDO, and pole signs are not gonna be regulated. So,
Well, then I suggest we draft standards up for next meeting. If we approve this tonight, then at next month's meeting, we need to fix the standards and put them back in there. And we can do that, correct?
you can come up with an ordinance at any time to amend any part of the Unified Development Ordinance.
And council, so the plan commission sends it back to council with whatever their vote is. Then when the council considers it, can the council put in restrictions, so to speak, or requirements at that time? Or does it have to originate at the plan commission?
It has to originate at the Plan Commission, but the statute I cited earlier, which is 602, allows for either the Plan Commission to initiate the ordinance or the town council can ask the Plan Commission to do it, so either way. But it would be a similar process to what you're going through now. And it's happened before, but usually when you've had an ordinance that you've sent to the town council for its approval, it's typically, I mean, your rezones, that's what you're typically doing. But, I mean, the town, and I meant to look this up, but I'm pretty sure on the past, the Plan Commission has initiated changes to the zoning ordinance, and they've gone to the council. It's just usually you're doing rezones and PUDs. You're doing changes to the zone maps, that's your steady diet. So it's not typically this kind of thing, but you certainly have the authority to do that. And that's part of your mandate under the Indiana Code, is to start a conversation with council about what's working and what's not working.
Well, I agree with David. I don't think we want to hold too many people up from doing some things. If we got the tools to revamp it in the future, I think that's the way we should go.
I think if we find it, there's something that's making everybody go to the BZA to get a variance for it, then that's something you may want to change, things
Right.
like that.
Or standards for flags and sizes of flags and that kind of thing. I think the concern more, and I may be misquoting council, if somebody's watched Cats or looked at the minutes and has a different opinion, I think their concern was more First Amendment issues as opposed to, I don't think they were concerned or were necessarily thinking about sizes and limits and things like that. I think they were just trying to make sure that that the town wasn't restricting free speech or First Amendment with the flags and the signs. So I think that's where, and again, I mean, quote me, or tell me if I'm misquoting council, but I think that's what the conversation was centered on.
No, I agree with you on that, but, because I asked this sort of question, and maybe I didn't articulate myself correctly when I was asking, but I thought just because we're allowing something, it would still have standards in place, because I was referencing back to the UDO, and I keep bringing up animated signs, because that's the point that I brought up,
Right.
that it's mentioned other places in the UDO, so
Well-
I'm just
if you want to look at the UDO and then send me an email and tell me what you're talking about, I'll take a look at it. But, I mean, right now, what I'm looking at, like I said, is Table 413, which talks about the districts that certain signs are permitted in, the maximum number, the placement of the signs, maximum sign. And so, it wouldn't hurt to make it clear, I guess, that if you want animated signs to be allowed, what the restrictions are. I mean, that's perfectly acceptable. But I think that example definitely was one that one council member had a concern with how it was defined. So, and actually, the other one that was, I think was concerning was the emitting signs, although those weren't struck from the table of prohibited signs.
Okay, we'll just go with the log flags in the yard. Okay, so like if we pass this, and let's say whoever comes to Denise and wants to build or whatever, and they end up having like 100 signs in their yard or flags or whatever, so then if later planning would try to change the ordinance, would that person be grandfathered in? He could leave all his flags in the yard?
I would say on that kind of sign, no. Because that's something that's easily removable, as opposed to like a billboard or something that somebody has.
Something more substantial.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good way to put it, yes.
Okay.
It'd be like the garage sales, you know. I think we had this, before your time, I remember having a discussion at the Plan Commission level about grandfathering people in who had shall we call them, permanent garage sales. And my opinion was they're not grandfathered in.
But if they put like, cover the whole roof or something of their sign, that's substantial, so we'd have to let them have it, right? If we changed it and didn't want them to cover like the
Yeah,
whole
that's one of
roof.
those things, Pam, I'm going to have to look at it case by case, but I'm not going to agree that just because they've been doing something, they can be grandfathered in and it's a legally non-conforming sign or whatever. I just wouldn't agree to that.
Well,
So-
and I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, if a new business come to Nice, and then this was passed, and they put a whole sign over the new, I mean, that would be horrible if it was something like expensive that we go in then later, like, if we decide a month or two to change it, then we're gonna go, Denise is gonna have to go back and say, you have to take that down. See what I'm saying? It could
No, I
run into
understand.
some. It's just a lot of confusion till it gets straightened out, I guess.
And we hope that nobody does it.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
We hope that nobody does something we don't want done in
Well, if
in the
we-
interim.
If we get it done pretty quickly, the likelihood of
Right.
that is pretty small.
Like
And
30
I would hope
days.
that anyone who wants to build something would talk to Denise first, and then she could
Right.
maybe explain what is going on. But I really think we have to do something tonight.
Is there anything in the provisions or the UDO that shows like limits on height or things of that nature, or is that kind of open?
On table 4.13, which is on page 103, there are size limits for the awning signs, the ground signs, mailbox signs, projecting sign, wall signs, window signs.
What about like the pole signs, if somebody was to erect any, there's nothing
Nope.
that limits?
Those
They
are,
were originally under the prohibited when
Right.
the UDO
Right.
was written.
Sounds like we got a lot of work to do. We need to put these regulations and standards into place quickly.
Okay, any more comments or questions from the Plan Commission for Denise? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Don't all come at one time.
Envision Ellettsville was a swing for the fences. It's impressive. When I first read it a little over a year ago, I had no idea Ellettsville was going down that path, and it really excited me. The last year, 8 months, 10 months, where has been spent on the UDO, it's also a swing for the fences. It's a great document for what it is. It needs to be a living document. There will be problems. There always are. Especially when you go from a conventional document to something this advanced. I'm the guy that's being affected by it because I got dirt on the ground, and we're moving dirt. And our entire project was designed based on Envision Ellettsville and the new UDO. I understand there's concerns with it. There will always be concerns with it. You guys have the ability to amend that over time. And with the sign concern that I'm hearing, you could probably do that pretty quickly, it sounds like. I would just implore you, beg you, request, send this with positive recommendation, get the town council to approve it, get this ordinance in place, make your amendments as quickly as possible, and let's see what this thing can do, because it is a powerful document. We're going to be the first on the ground. We may or may not need a variance or two. I don't know that yet, once we finally review it, the final plat for that. But if you don't approve this, we're going to need 50 variances, because your old zoning document required me to do a conventional subdivision. Your new does not. Your new is a very, very powerful document. It's very impressive. So I'm guess here asking you, there will be problems. It's okay. It's okay for it to be a living document. Stay on top of it, make the change you need to make, and let's see Ellettsville grow in just an amazing way. The earlier annexation was exciting to me too, knowing that Umbarger's coming in and what they're proposing is just great for the town. It's great for employment. It's great for workforce housing. So, thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I've got one question yet, David. Denise, how long or how good is this UDO going to be good for, in your mind?
I think it'll be good for many years because, as Chris said, it's a living document. It's not something that we have to, how can I word it, like redo it all at one time like we did to create the UDO. We see a problem, we can change it, or maybe something going on in town or the town wants to do, maybe some different zoning, we can change it pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I will make a motion that we adopt Resolution 29-2024, sending a favorable recommendation to the town council in regards to their amendments to the UDO.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
David Drake,
Yes.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Steve Hale,
Yes.
Zach Michael,
Yes.
Pamela Samples, Brian Skaggs,
Yes.
Pat Wesleski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Planning Department update.
Next meeting's October 3rd. I'll probably have a small subdivision for you. That's about it right now.
Okay. We have privilege of the floor. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the commission about something that wasn't on our agenda tonight? Seeing none. Any plan commission comments?
Of course, I'm going to comment. I think we definitely need to put the mallet down. We definitely need to speed this process up and get these regulations or standards in place as quick as possible. So I'm asking you, Denise and Mike, how soon can we get this going? I mean, is it feasible to get it on the next meeting? Maybe just pick one of them?
Do I have to wait on the council to approve the UDO?
No, it's considered approved, so no. You don't
Okay.
have to wait. I mean, you can start with the next meeting,
Okay.
but you'll have to tell us what you want to put in it.
Well, I mean, we definitely need some standards in there for sure.
Yeah, we get what she's saying.
What?
You didn't tell her last time
What?
about what we want to change is, she didn't get an email from you.
Oh. You lost me
I knew
for a
what she
minute.
meant.
I'm happy to draft up whatever your suggestion.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm gonna need help with this. I'm not a builder. So we're gonna
So,
have to get some
can we-
input on this again.
Can we make the standards consistent with what the standards are for the other items? Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, you can draft it however you want. And so like, for example, with regard to the pole signs, if you want to take what's in the current, your last ordinances with regard to pole signs, and you want to draft an ordinance to put that language in the UDO, you can.
That-
Because you do have some regulations on pole signs now. So if you don't want to expand those, if you just want to keep what you got, which is like one sign per parcel and there's height requirements,
And square footage on
yeah,
the
I
sign
mean,
part.
I could do that and have it ready for the next meeting, probably. So,
Yes,
and
that-
I would suggest those are the kind of things you start with, and like I said, the fines, because what's left now in your, what's not being repealed is section 1099, which is just the real general $25 a day, per day, each day the offense is, each day that the offense continues is $25 a day. I would suggest that at some point you sit down and figure out a fine schedule for different things that could go wrong. Because $25 a day is nothing in terms of a fine. So it may work for some offenses, but it's not going to work for everything. So just think about what types of fines you'd like to see for violations of the code. And that could be done probably in one ordinance, but.
So our current standards in place, you can bring those back and we can approve those to the next meeting, correct?
If there's if there's something in the code that you want to keep, yeah, like for pole signs.
Right.
I can do an ordinance and have that ready for the next meeting for you to consider.
I'm
so that
saying-
it gets put in the UDO.
Right. Everything we have current right now needs to go right back in there until we have time to look at it. As far as if we exempted pole signs, okay, so now they can use pole signs, but then we need to use our current pole signs, well, our ex-current pole signs
Ex-current,
regulation.
right.
Bring those and get them back in there quickly. Yeah,
Yes.
because
yes,
I don't
but-
think the councils, and I'm speaking for myself, I don't think they realize that all the dimensions, things like that were being thrown out the window. They just thought, okay, now I can fly a flag again. They didn't mean, you know, that didn't necessarily mean they could put 500 flags in their yard. So things like that, whatever ordinances we have now on the sections that we allowed need to come right back in here.
Okay, but you'll have to tell me what those are.
Can you not look those up?
Well, I can, Dan, but which issue are you talking
The
about?
ones I said, the ones that we exempted, like the pole signs. the
Okay, well, pole signs are easy, but,
Animated signs.
Animated signs, whatever we changed today. Inflatable signs, pole signs,
Animated and roof.
and roof signs.
Well, the inflatable, the ones that are like, I call them Gumbies,
some of them
They're
are in the
considered-
code.
yeah, they're considered temporary. So,
So the form that they're in the code, your ex-current code, may not be what you want to put
But-
in the UDO.
I'm saying, let's get them back in there now to where we have time to look it over, so we don't have something crazy happen to us. So let's just put the O standards back in there quickly, and then we can take a look at them, unless you think we can change it in one meeting. But I'm saying, let's get the standards back in there,
well,
because we can't let this go to the Wild West here.
back to
I agree
the,
with that.
back to the Gumby. So is the council's intent that
that be displayed all the time, because now it's considered
Right.
temporary, and it'll be up for 30 days, down 10, and they can only do it 6 times a year. So that's the regulation on that
Well,
type
see,
of
then,
sign.
that always already had regulations. I was told that there was no regulations. If we allowed it, then there's no regulations.
It's considered a temporary banner, the Gumbies.
In the current, in your now,
UDO.
well,
In
in
the
the
current
UDO,
code.
it's allowed. In your past that you've just repealed now, or that's gonna be repealed.
All right,
It's a
then-
temporary sign.
Then the inflatable signs are fine then. We have standards in there. We have regulations in there, correct?
The UDO now.
In the
UDO.
current UDO.
We just
No.
Not in the UDO. You
I'm
just
sorry,
struck
I'm
it.
getting very confused here because Denise, what was it you just told me?
In our current code,
Meaning what, our old, not the UDO?
Sections
Okay.
152 and 153.
yeah.
Which is not current anymore, correct?
Well,
As of Monday, if council, they have to vote again. correct,
No.
on the UDO, or-
they don't have to.
It
vote.
is right now. It's
Okay.
the old, that's why I
So,
confused.
Now it is
Sorry.
repealed then.
What I have before the council for Monday's meeting is an ordinance that's been tabled a couple of times, and it was an ordinance to pass the UDO, but it was exempting certain things that Taylor Seeker recommended be in a standards manual. So there are certain provisions that are going to stay and are not going to be repealed, but everything else is going to be repealed. So when I say standards, I'm talking about things like stormwater and some of those things that may change from time to time because IDEM changes its rules or there's a change in the Indiana code. And those types of things probably don't belong in an ordinance, they belong in a standards manual. Your plan commission rules for meetings doesn't need to be in an ordinance. Taylor Seeker says that should be a standalone resolution or document that you can change at any time. So there are certain things that you don't want to be in an ordinance because you don't want to have to go through the procedure required by the Indiana code to pass it here and then send it to council. There's-
Correct. And I understand what you're saying there, but I think we're talking about two different things here. Because I'm talking about,
I know, you're talking about animated
right,
signs.
and I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
But what I'm talking about is putting the standards back in place on animated signs, pole signs, and whatever. I guess the inflatable signs are covered. The other part, I know what you're saying about that, the part that we exempt, I understand that. But what I'm saying, this needs to come back to us quickly, so we can get the old standards put back in here. And at least that will give us a chance to look at them too, and decide what needs to be changed. Does everyone understand me, or am I being?
So,
I think maybe the concern is with the new UDO, like if I had a business and I wanted to get 100-foot inflatable dog, like there's nothing that says I can't. Is that kind of the concern or?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess we're just gonna try to do like a basic,
But we could change it then. Am I correct?
I think that's what Dan's proposing
We have
is.
the opportunity to change it, go right then and there.
So should we look at the old ordinances in the next meeting, figure out what we want to change?
I
and
think
then-
that's a good suggestion. I will attempt to draft something with regard to the pole signs to get those back in quickly.
You could, not
I-
to interrupt, sorry, I was saying, not even to put together whole standards. We could just do something quickly that would just put a limit, you know, like as far as height and total square footage. And just put like a cannot exceed maximum limits and have that be maybe kind of the quick thing, just in case, and then come back with a more detailed standards.
I think Ryan's idea is a good one. I think if the plan commission members want to look at 152 and 153 as they stand now and cross-reference it to the UDO, and at your next meeting, we can go through a list of what you want changed, so then it can be ready for the November meeting.
Right.
And with regard to animated signs and the other things that you have concerns about.
Pole
Animate-
signs and roofs.
Roof signs,
Everything we struck,
inflatable signs.
everything the council struck.
Right, because it's, honestly, the pole signs, I think, are going to be pretty easy. It's going to take me a little bit to go through animated, inflatable, and those types of things, and figure out where to put it, and depending on what your suggestions are, it's gonna take me a while to figure out where to put it in the code, so.
Yeah, because I think instead of just sending rush ordinances to council, we just take another month and then send it to them how we want it, instead of doing two.
And likewise flags, you know, if you want limits on sizes, whatever, and it may be we have to create even a new table, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what your suggestions are and all that, but we may want to create another table, I don't know.
Like in current code, well, I guess I'm
Yeah.
gonna stop saying that now, but it says the maximum height of a freestanding sign shall be 26 feet, and the pole signs considered freestanding. The maximum sign area is 80 square feet.
So that's an easy thing, I think, for me to fix and figure out where to put
Yeah.
it. Some of this other, your other suggestions, it's gonna take a little bit of time, but.
So maybe we can have that one ready to go for next month, and the other ones we can talk about next month, and hopefully have something ready for November.
Or even by the end of the year.
Yeah. And then Denise can block for us for the next couple months.
Or else I'm gonna go buy 100-foot inflatable loader.
Okay, was there any other plan commission comments? Seeing none, we're adjourned.